Your story is rewriting as you are working on changes that are and were necessary in your life. You're now nurturing more self-love than ever before, and therefore your season of immense blessings is beginning. Do you feel that, my friend? Because when it comes to self-love, there's a lot of misunderstanding of this concept, like what is self-love? What this truly means? But to be honest, you know what it means? It means that you firstly gain a deeper and more truthful relationship with yourself. So when you ask yourself, what do I need? You can sense the answers of honest and generous needs that you have for yourself. Those are emotional needs, those are mental needs, those are physical needs in a sense of self-care. And when you come to those answers and you start providing what you've experienced as a sense of a need to yourself, you start providing it emotionally. Like, for example, when you feel a lack of love, or when you feel a lack of care, when you feel a lack of any kind of emotional connection, think about how much you're providing this emotional connection to yourself. How often you say to yourself that you love those parts of yourself, that you love your talents, that you love your uniqueness, that you love your gifts, that you love your resilience, that you love your strength, that you love your whatever. How often you say that to yourself? Because once you start appreciating more of the parts of you that make you a good person, that make you an authentic being, a creative, let's say, human, you will notice that actually there's a part that's already perfectly well. I'm just not paying enough attention to it. I'm just not nurturing it enough. That's why I'm lacking love, right? Love is not coming from another person, even though it comes when we unite on that loving, caring frequency. But the true love actually comes from within, when we start appreciating those parts of us that make us unique. And the whole part of self-awakening comes from nurturing and appreciating this part of us that makes us unique, and we start letting go of the programs that make us unauthentic, that make us acting and behaving without our conscious will. And that's why I want to remind you today to focus on your inner being. You can call it inner child, you can call it inner being or inner self, however you want. And just ask yourself, what do I need? What emotions I need to experience more often, or what kind of self-care I need? What thoughts and beliefs are destructive for me? And see how that inner self would like you to think. Because this will raise your frequency more than anything else. Because you will notice the lackness, or that, let's say, inner emptiness that was making you behave completely unauthentically, that was making you be a people pleaser, that was making you do things that were not coming from your heartfelt desires. And once you establish a connection with that part of you, you can always ask yourself, okay, what do I need right now? And that's where self-love comes in, because once you start providing to yourself what you need, you will start to feel something you've most probably never felt before. You will start to feel like a part of you starts awakening, and it starts calling you to yourself, back to yourself. Like when you start calling you to you, you become whole, right? You become who you always were meant to be. And that is when we experience a unity between the self and the real self, or higher self, or whatever you want to call it. And That's on the emotional level. When we go on the physical level, we have a certain sense of self-care, right? What your body needs, like some sort of movement, a certain diet, some stretching, a good sleep, things like that. And then you start establishing from that inner self a connection with your body, like what do I need on that physical level so I can feel healthy, so I can feel good, so I can feel amazing, so I can feel magnificent as you are. And you start meeting those needs, right? You start taking care of that. That's why we call it a self-care. Most people don't even know what it means. Most people don't know how to fill up their cups of life. And here's the answer. You need to know what you need on all levels, on emotional level, as I said, on physical level, as I said. And then we have a mental level. What's the mental level? Mental level is your mental attitude towards yourself. If you think about your inner child or inner self, inner being, as a consciousness within you that's constantly listening what you're saying to yourself, consciously, unconsciously, it's constantly listening. Imagine like there would be a child always with you, and that little kid would be listening all your thoughts you're thinking, everything you're saying to yourself about what you can do, all the reasons why you can't do something, all the complaints, all the judgments. That kid would be listening everything. And now think about in what kind of human that kid would evolve. And when you think about yourself, you may notice, well, that's why I am the way I am. I'm constantly throwing these hard thoughts into my consciousness. I'm constantly thinking about that. I'm constantly saying those words that are not even mine. And I'm not even trying to change that. I'm not even trying to pay more attention to how I want to think. And thoughts are, when you think about the mind, it's that huge bubble of information. And the ones you're thinking the most are the strongest. And when you try to change them, you firstly need to learn to listen to them, to observe them without judging them. Because thoughts become powerful only when they are experienced through emotions, when you start to feel what you think. But, many ancient practices are teaching us, for example, in meditation of mindfulness, coming from Buddhism, is teaching us to just observe your mind without trying to change it, without trying to manipulate anything. It is teaching you to just close your eyes and observe your mind. And sometimes may happen when you start observing your mind, it starts behaving differently. Usually it comes because out of trauma. Like, for example, when you have a cat or a dog, and while you're observing that cat or dog, it's behaving quite well. But as soon as you take your eyes off that thing, it goes crazy. It starts doing all kinds of things, right? It usually happens to your mind because most probably if you've been through something traumatic as a little kid, you've developed certain behaving patterns that helped you to not be exposed to certain anger. You've developed a certain way or a certain set of behaviors that protected you from triggering somebody. And you've kind of perfected your character the way that you will be behave just this way, because only that way you will not trigger that specific person, so he or she will not fall out of anger. And you've developed that great sense of awareness that when somebody is observing you, you need to behave that certain way. And it may be happening in your mind as well. Every time you're observing your mind, your thoughts, you only experience more beautiful thoughts, more kind thoughts. But as soon as you stop observing your mind, you start experiencing all that darkness, right? So you need to learn to observe your mind from that sense of compassion, like be open for everything that's happening within you. And just see it for what those thoughts are. Just observe it. Because at some point you will notice that those thoughts are not yours. And you can transmute them. When you will see a low quality thought, you can think about what would be a greater quality thought and uplift it. And if you do it every single day, you will become much better at doing that work. And we call that work a creative transformation of thinking, because at some point you need to shift your thoughts. Because to make any kind of a change in action, in emotions, you need to change your thinking. And as we are doing these changes, as we are moving through, as right now we are in this phase of healing of the past, as we are releasing these old patterns, many of us are experiencing more negative thoughts, but how I'm dealing with that, when I have this, as we all have this phases, maybe in a day or in a week or in a month, when we just feel more negative, like we have more negative thoughts, I sit down and for a moment I just observe what's happening, so I can see, oh, that's what I'm thinking about, oh, that's how I'm looking on these things, oh, that's what I believe to be true, right? And you give some time to yourself, so you can recognize, oh, was I truly feeding my inner being with that garbage? And slowly after that, you start transforming them. You start thinking about what life you actually want to live, and you start making a new blueprint for your future that will be made out of greater quality of thoughts. And that is a deep work. It's not an easy work, but it's a necessary work for anyone who wants to awaken deeper senses and who actually wants to create better results in your life in a sense of manifestation. So I want to remind you, once you start paying more attention to that inner being, and you start asking yourself, what are my needs right now? What are my personal needs? I don't mean, when you ask yourself, what are your needs? And you may come up with an answer, I need money. And you will say, well, I can't give that to myself. What are you talking about? Well, sure, you can't give what you don't have, right? But maybe if you would be more rejuvenated and you would use more of your creative mind, you would come up with a great idea that can help you to make more money in a few months or years. And a great amount of self-care and self-love may help you to get onto that creative level where you will come up with many incredible stuff and you will start doing your best at that. You may become really, really good. Because sometimes, people are writing me like how to increase sales in my art, and I ask them, where can I find your art? And they say, well, I can send you some photos. And I say, well, if you don't have at least an online store or a certain platform where people can go there and buy it, how can you just wish that people will buy your things, right? You need to do your best at exploring the possibilities, at studying the possibilities, and then practicing all kinds of ways that may find you in sense of information, in sense of knowledge, and acknowledge yourself, right? That's what it means to be acknowledged. Acknowledge yourself with what is finding you, with possibilities, because you will notice that you're living in a world that is offering you abundance in all the ways, but you're not grabbing it because of unknown reasons. And unknown reasons are those reasons that you will find in your mind. When you start observing your mind, you will notice that that bubble was clouded with many dark clouds that were completely unconscious from your awareness. And I just want to remind you that slowly you need to become like a wind in that cloud and blow away the thoughts that are not for you anymore, that are not sustainable for you anymore, and are not helpful for your evolution anymore. And to become that kind of a wind, you just need to become awareness, observing that cloud of thoughts, and slowly start transforming them into a greater quality thoughts. And you know what's best for you. And I want to also remind you that distractions are killers of desired life. So if you're constantly distracting yourself, you're saying goodbye to the life you want to live, you're saying no to the life you want to live, and you're saying yes to all the anything, anything that is finding you. Oh, it's so interesting, all your pleasures are guiding your life. Everything may be interesting until everything becomes boring, and then you get depressed. It's a common pattern. And depression is actually this interesting state that's calling us to bounce back to our true self. Because we can go through sadness, we can go through frustration, we can go through anxiety and fear and all kinds of different emotions until we get depressed. And depression is that state where we feel like we'll stay there forever or we will bounce back to our true self. And those who decide to bounce back to their true self, they say no to distractions and they say yes to the life that is calling them. And my wish for you is to say yes to the life that is calling you. And really establish that strong relationship with that inner self that will tell you what are your needs, that will tell you in what kind of direction to go, that will tell you what books to read, that will tell you what things to start to initiate, that will tell you what to do at this point. And give yourself emotions you've been lacking most of your life. Give yourself advices you've been lacking most of your life. As a little kid at some point in your past, you would like to hear something that nobody said to you. Now be that mentor to your younger self and give words to yourself that you need. Give those emotional hugs to your younger self that you needed back at that time. And emotions are just energy. If you think about inspiration, how inspiration feels like, you've been inspired in the past. When you start thinking about how it felt like when that music, that song inspired me, you will start awakening that energy, and you need to learn to generate energy because that's your power. You need to learn to nourish certain energy that is lacking in your life, right? And you have that power to awaken any kind of emotion, any time you want. That's called emotional regulation. And as we learn to become better at it, we become emotionally intelligent, right? And I just want to give you those reminders for today. To just remind you, as you already know, this native power is within you. And it's up on you, what will you do with it? But it is your responsibility to decide how you want to live your life and who you want to become as the byproduct of today's challenges, of today's whatever is happening. Expect many great breakthroughs. But usually for breakthroughs, we need breakdowns, and we need to go through, sometimes we need to go through painful healings, so we start appreciating what's awakening inside of those wounds. And I'm wishing you to find grace within your beautiful heart as you're moving through this phase. And I know that on the other side of this, there's wiser you that is already calling you to that you and is celebrating you every single day when you say yes to your true self and no to meaningless distractions. So my friends, I'm sending you all much love, blessings and power. I hope you've enjoyed in today's painting. The name of today's painting is The Spirit Guide. It was a commission work for a wonderful cause, a beautiful project. I hope you've enjoyed it. You can find prints of all of my art in our Etsy shop, AttractPassion. The link is also in the description of this video. Go there and check it out. My friends, stay creative, stay beautiful. Until next time, one love.